Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. So excited to be back in the swing of things. I did not do a show for April, and I think it's probably the first time that I've skipped an entire month for like the last 7 to 8 years for this podcast. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on and super busy with a whole bunch of things. And a lot of different areas of life, but all good stuff. And speaking of all good stuff, we have my favorite person back on the show. And I know you missed him. Isaac Ho is back, my brother from another mother. We really always have excellent shows. And we kind of go back and forth today about how he is always one of my highest rated shows and the most enjoyable ones that I get a lot of feedback and he has a lot of fans. So I'm really excited to jump back on and catch up with him. And as always, we keep promising that we'll do this a little bit more frequently, but I have so many great guests that I have to get on and share with the audience that sometimes, I neglect to get Isaac back on the show, and it's totally my fault. But I would making it a point to keep him in the loop a little bit more going forward. And he is a vital part of what I'm attempting to do in my future. And he really shares an amazing story, what he's been going through. And I thank him for sharing with us all these different aspects of a difficult point in his life. But, he's coming out the other side and really just benefiting from all of just the support that he's getting from all the folks out there. So if you can even give him a shout out and just wish him well during, something that you'll get after you hear this episode. As always, please leave a rating and review so I can continuously get awesome guests like Isaac on the show. A little bit more also about this show is like the preview of the book that's coming out. Isaac is in one of my chapters, and I'm definitely looking for some feedback, guys. So if anyone wants to get a copy of this book before it hits the shelves, I'd love to get it to you. I'll give you a free copy, and just as long as you hook me up with a rating and review when it comes out. So I'm at Omar at OmarCumberbatch.com. Love to hear from you. See if you're interested in that offer. Let's jump in the show. Hey, Isaac, welcome back to the show. It's been too long, my brother.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's always a privilege.
Oh man, yeah. Now listen, I tell you all the time, and I know you think I'm full of it, but they love when we have these shows. Like, well, for whatever reason, we always had a great connection just from the get. And you've always been able to provide us with a ton of valuable content, especially around like sales and stuff. But yeah, this we could just treat this one like a catch up because I think we're going almost like 2 years. I was maybe a year and a half. Let's say
Yeah.
a year and a half. You know,
Oof, a lot has happened. Yeah. In
yeah,
your life and mine, I feel like. So I'd
definitely.
love to catch up with you, man. I mean, you got exciting things happening. Like you got a new fridge coming today.
Well,
No, it's a new dishwasher.
the dishwasher.
I want a new fridge, so I keep saying new fridge, but you got a new dishwasher coming today, yeah?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I at this point in my life, I don't know what's more important, a fridge or a dishwasher. Put it that way, because I don't do the dishes, man. I cannot do that. I'll figure out what to do with the food, but like I need to clean those dishes. I have not washed a dish, and I can't tell you how long. That's like the staple of appliances for me.
That's on my wife's list of things she wish she never had to do again is
Yeah.
wash dishes.
Oh, I'm with her. I am 100% with her. It is. I can't imagine the amount of time that it would take to do that task. It's just
Just the pot washing, even washing pots and pans takes forever. I mean, I
yeah.
guess this is kind of revealing. You must be the one who doesn't wash dishes in your family. There's no
Oh.
50-50 split.
Well, no, that's why I said we got right down the middle with these dishwashers. We're always good with it, so we are not doing it. That's the thing of the past. And it's funny because when my wife moved in. So now, I mean, we've lived together probably 18 years in total. She never had a dishwasher, and she didn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like so growing up, and I mean, I
You're
didn't
like,
need it actually until I moved out. Like that's when I finally got one, and
wow.
I didn't. Now I can. That's one of the luxuries of life I can't ever give
This
up.
this episode is on YouTube, yeah? It's gonna
Yeah.
be on YouTube. All right,
Yes.
well, if you're watching this right now and you can't believe that someone didn't have a dishwasher for 18 years. Just let us know in the comments. 'Cause to me, that's strange. Like my childhood growing up, our chores were to load the dishwasher. One
Really?
person had to load the dishwasher, the other person had to scrub the pots and pans. But yeah, it's so funny, man. So because I consult for a construction company, I know a little bit about hardware. So I just have to joke with you. Did you get an LG or a Samsung or a GE? What
Well,
dishwasher did you get?
it's a whirlpool.
Oh, Whirlpool. Okay.
And the only reason, and I've had a Samsung in the past, and and I hope I'm not screwing you by saying this.
No, we don't have any alliances to
Okay,
any brand, so no, you're not. No one, they're not writing me any checks.
okay, good, because LG has been a disaster for me.
Mm,
Oh, all of the electrical components, nothing with like the cleaning is awesome. Whatever, like my washer and dryer LGs,
yeah,
um, the motherboards have gone.
yeah,
It's like it's all electrical, like great. They wash great, they dry great, everything's fine. But the electronics on those, and again, like it's funny because I've heard that they're really good. I could be
right.
just my experience, but I just said what is the one that I know has been in the business the longest at Home
Whirlpool.
Depot, and it was Whirlpool. So I just said, you know what, let me try,
Hmm.
give them a shot, and we'll see. You know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you just ask the person that works there which one gets the most returns.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and they'll let you know.
yeah,
She helped me with it. She's like, I like this one. She's like, but people bring it back because the plastic doesn't hold or something breaks on the door, and you
yeah,
know the ice maker has a problem, and so I just love. It's funny, like being in sales. Sales is such a funny thing. Like sometimes I go, I don't really want to be in sales. I just love talking to people. So it works out. But
yeah.
sales is such a funny thing. But I love talking to the salespeople at Home Depot and Lowe's. Like I talk to them forever because a lot of them know inventory, they know stocking, they know basic construction, so they can make recommendations. We had to change the vent fan in our kitchen because it was from the 90s. We
Yeah.
changed it last year, and it was the biggest ordeal ever, Omar, because it was using styrofoam as a filter. It was so old. So
Oh,
you could not replace the filter fans. And so the styrofoam was melting into the grease, and you would have styrofoam mixed grease just dropping into your food.
oh,
And I hand cut metal filters for a while, and they just broke apart because once you break the fascia, this is fun for health coaches. Once you break the fascia, everything shatters. That happens too. If you want to see that happen, just cut a filter fan and run it through the dishwasher one time. So we were just going through a new filter fan every time we washed it. And finally I said, well, we gotta do something. So I went to Home Depot and they were like, that man, I learned about general contracting fast. It was like, all right, first of all, the electrical is not compatible. The HVAC person can add a duct, but they don't know electrical, so they can't fix the electrical. And then the demolition to remove a cabinet needs to be done by a specialist to come out of your wall.
oh, jeez.
And so then, luckily, fortunately, finally, I had an HVAC person come out, and they just like they didn't do it that often, so they could do the duct work. Long story short, is I ended up paying way too many people to do something that one person who was a general contractor did extremely well. And
Wow.
that's just kind of a lesson with general contracting. So if you're a health coach and you're just like, hey, specializing is great, well, I'll tell you something else. Being able to complete a product from start to finish, if you have multiple skill sets, that's super valuable. Um,
Yes,
and it's so
yes.
good to hear your voice. It's funny because this is year of the fire horse. And I remember talking to you. I want to say it was New Year's. Was it New Year's Day that we talked on the phone about the book that you're writing?
Yes, yep. Yeah.
Yeah, New Year's Day, which is my birthday, which was
Yeah.
also the beginning of the I think it's the Greek calendar's New Year, not the Chinese calendar's New Year. And so you have this amazing book and kind of like it's funny because at first when we were talking about it, I was like, it's kind of a pivot, but it's not really a pivot. It just kind of makes sense. So tell us about your book, man.
Yeah, so it came out of over 200 episodes doing the Health Coach Academy, right? Like I started it out, this whole podcast just trying to learn about how to make money as a health coach. That was
Mm,
like one of the things that I thought I at that point had enough knowledge to actually help people, but I just did not have the business acumen to actually make any money off this. And one of my first mentors was like, "Why don't you?" You love the podcast. I've been doing it, a variation of the podcast at that point for like probably 5 years, but not this podcast. So then he's like, why don't you start interviewing some folks around health coach and the business aspect of it? And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I fell in love with it. I mean, like, guests like yourself, and it's weird because I don't know if you've had this experience because as a health coach yourself, you kind of know what you have to do, right? Like you learn whatever methodology that it is that you eventually think that that's your wheelhouse, your niche. And then it got old. So like my sugar story is almost 20 years old now,
The
Like
sugar story.
like
And if you're listening to this podcast, you don't know a sugar story, you should probably link it. Link it somewhere in the show notes so people can go. I know this sugar story really well because it's funny because some people know you as the sugar guy, but I know you as the Coach Academy guy, right?
right, exactly. And that's the point. It's like that sugar guy is it's not that he's dead or anything. It's just like I conquered that so long ago and it's like you're on
He's
to the next.
he's old skin.
Yeah,
You shed
right?
him. Yeah, yeah. You've grown new skin underneath the old skin. You went from being the sugar guy to
Yes,
being the Health Coach Academy guy, educating health coaches on how to build businesses.
correct, right? And as for where the passion is, like like I was like, I love it. Like so and it just was like there was always something new to hear about. Like all the health coach, well, obviously we didn't have all health coaches on the show, but we've had so many different people in expertise in business areas that we could apply to our health coaching businesses. And every person who I've interviewed was just as good as the last one, right? And it was just such a fascinating ride. So I wanted to figure out how to kind of share that story in a book, right? I thought it would have been great. It would have kind of paid homage to like all the guests, like yourself. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about. You are on the most recent edits. So you have a chapter yourself, and this is probably one that's going to be the super most attractive because you always have the highest rated shows in the Health Coach Academy. So there's interest there, but it was just like, how do we have a business and try to exactly talk about the individuals who I've interviewed and what they've shared with us. So I guess the whole premise of the book at the end of the day was business has phases. Your initial startup, when you get traction, and then when you kind of scale. And we set it up in different categories, and we highlighted certain individuals who can get us to basically like that 0 to 1 stage, the 1 to 10 stage, and the 10 to 100 stage. And that's basically as far as the clients go. And definitely we got to go on. I don't want to take up too much time because it's a show.
You
It's a
gotta
show in
you
itself,
gotta
right?
talk about this. Yeah, it's a show and it's we're gonna have more episodes about this book. Don't worry, because
Yeah, that's what
what
yeah.
people don't know is I've seen the book and
Yes.
it's got chapter after chapter of bangers in it on here's how you build a business with no money. Here's how this guy taught you to build a business with $0. Here's how this guy teaches you to build a business with scaled leverage. Here's how this guy teaches you, like me, to sell 60K health and fitness programs. That book is full of so much value. We got to just dissect each chapter in its own episode. I know, but
Yeah.
not today. But eventually, ultimately, and you got to tease people all the time with the info. It's so cute. What's the name of the book?
It's called the $1 Million Health Coach.
There you go. And here's the thing: is until I heard you say the name of the book, I never knew that you wanted to have $1 million health coach business. It's so interesting to me. So tell me, why did you name it the $1 Million Health Coach?
Well, yeah, no, I named it the $1 Million Health Coach because I thought that that was something that people should be aspiring to. And
Interesting. Tell
what
me more about that. Like what's the should aspire to around that? Because I
I
want to hear about that.
well, what's so it's funny because I had and I mentioned her in the book, Michelle Leota. She's a super popular health coach. She came on the show a bunch of times. I consider her a good friend, right? And it was almost like a lightning rod for some reason because I guess sometimes healers don't want to admit that they need and want money,
Money. Yes, yeah,
and
absolutely.
she was like, oh, we don't need $1 million health coach and this that the other. I was like, but wouldn't you want to see what $1 million health coach is so like you can kind of aspire to that?
Right.
And then we kind of had a little back and forth, or it was, in
That's
agreement,
so. Yeah,
right?
she had her own mindset around being an abundant health coach.
Yeah, and she
I
is
see that all the time, especially as a sales coach for health coaches. It's
right.
crazy.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I'm definitely curious to hear like your opinion on it. I mean, and again, like what I came to as a conclusion was like, yeah, we as health coaches are like these starving artists, right? Who want to help the
exactly.
world, and like we don't
Too
deserve
often,
it.
right on the nose.
Yeah, and it was like, and so it's like it seemed like a little bit of a lightning rod, which was kind of cool, I guess, because I guess it's going to help sales eventually. That is controversial in a weird way, but yeah, I love the idea. Like, why can't a health coach be somebody who makes $1 million, right? Like, why?
Right.
And if we have some examples who we can
And
draw,
$1 million is not that much money these days.
well,
If
that's
you were a health coach and you made 100,000 a year for 10 years,
yeah,
and you were in the industry for 10 years, yeah, then you would make $1 million. I've made three-quarters of $1 million in a single year. And
right.
so it's not, it's so interesting because people hear $1 million and I think they get triggered. If I said 1,000,000 pesos, nobody would bat an eye, right? It's just the idea that a health coach could live an abundant life feels so controversial to the idea of being there for people and healing people. And I know that your story about being a health advocate comes from your sister's passing with lung cancer. And a
Yes,
huge part of my story of being a health advocate is my best friend passing away from all these undiagnosed, terrible, painful things that no specialist could solve that I eventually went on to learn about. Everything from the bacteria to the way that insulin works to cortisol breaking down tissues and leaving too much fluid inside the body. All of these things. And so you and I, we're here because people we loved did not make it.
hmm
And we also believe that a health coach needs to be able to take care of themselves.
yes,
Yeah. And it's I've done a lot of spiritual work this year as you and I were talking on the phone. And
yeah.
I had this crazy experience where I was really just speaking to a higher power and they said as a health coach, whether you heal someone or not, the only permanent thing that you can guarantee you heal them today is that they will die a different day. And at first I was really discouraged by that. And then they told me, but you don't serve the healing. You serve me. You serve the order of the universe that allows that person to get another chance. And in my spiritual conversation with, you can say God or whatever entity you want to use, this higher vibration, I said, well, when do I, as a health coach, then get my break? Because there's so much inside of weight loss and insulin resistance. There's so much inside of neurodegenerative disease. There's so much inside of neuroimmune. There's so much inside of functional medicine. There's so much inside of biomechanics. There's so much that takes a person out. And I've been studying this since I was 17, so I'm 20 years now. Had my business since I was 22. And they said you get the break when people heal themselves.
Mm.
And I said, "Oh no, that's a completely different business model." And I was like, most health coaches probably haven't figured that out because they haven't had that spiritual level conversation. And then it said like if you're listening to this and you're a person and you want the health coach to get a break, then go and heal yourself.
Mm.
And then it said until then, the health coach has no reprieve. And that's such a hard carry for a health coach that I think if they don't really take immaculate care of themselves, which is what my new book is all about, and they don't understand everything from, I used to think self care was working out and eating well and meditating.
hmm
And I did a Facebook post. It got like 40 something comments. I said, "What is mental health?" And not a single person said it's psychosocial support.
hmm
40 people, all healers in my Facebook. None of them said it's having people that socially support you around your mental health struggles and will talk about it with you and share meaningful activities with you. Zero. And I didn't even know that that was actually needed until I had a psychotic breakdown,
Mm.
which is what my book that I'm writing. It's not nearly as far. You're like one chapter away from finishing version 12.
Right.
I'm like 5 chapters away from finishing version 1. So, that's something that's been really present for me is being a healer, which so many people I talk to say you're born a healer. You don't become a healer. Like healers are born. They want to remove pain almost the moment that they come to the planet.
Hmm.
Being a healer is such a huge role. I watched my dad be a healer as a family practice doctor, and he did not take care of himself. And he had everything from blood sugar issues to carpal tunnel to shoulder injuries. He had physical therapy claims, everything.
Hmm.
Because as a doctor, he was working so hard to take care of his patients that he didn't take care of himself. I remember his self care routine was so limited, man. He shaved his face as he drove on the way to take us to work in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was one, not safe. I never recommend anyone, especially driving a stick shift forerunner,
Oh man.
spend one hand holding an electric razor while driving and shifting and using their foot with the other. But that was like the amount of time he gave himself to take care of himself a day.
Mm.
And that has changed a little bit and it's evolved, but it's had to wait until he's retired and he's already had surgeries for complications. I won't even list all the complications.
Yeah. No, but to your point, you explained your issue and your breakdown. I hope that you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about that episode because I think that it was very profound when I heard it, and I think the audience will get a lot out of it. But even to your father, like we don't make change in anything unless something smacks us in the face to awaken us to we have to do
Yeah.
something. I think that's why one of the funny things about just even having the Health Coach Academy, besides the money part of it, is convincing. And so I think we get along so well because you're so good at sales, right? You have to convince people to take that step without necessarily hitting the proverbial wall, right? It's like it would be a perfect world for us is to just be in like we want to prevent this shit, right? We don't
Right,
want
right.
to the wheels fall off and then you have a crisis and then you fix it. It's like my story about like just wanting an older brother, like to just
Mm.
I don't need to touch everything to see if it's hot, right? Like I if you tell me it's hot, I'm gonna believe you, right? But we found, and again, our experience dictates that. With your father, myself, obviously your experience, we got to hit the wall, you know.
Yeah.
So if you could tell us a little bit about the wall that you hit.
About the wall that I hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
The best summary is the working title of the book is Channels, a first generation story of breaking down, waking up, and coming back to who you actually are. And hopefully that tells people exactly what it's about. But I'm a first generation immigrant. Um, my parents came here from Taiwan, and I grew up here. My dad came here when he was 6. My mom came here when she was 16, and they had a lot of ancestral things. And I didn't know that until I started working with my psychiatrist that the values that we have inside us are established by the losses in our life. And as an immigrant, our parents sacrifice so much to get us here that their losses are extreme. And so everything from how they think about money to how they process emotion, they're doing that from a trauma basis. And then they're turning that trauma into values. And so I absorbed those values as a boy, learning that things like delayed gratification were super important. Things like not spending money in any luxurious or foolish way were really important. Old values that were super necessary for the survival of my ancestors' generations before. There's this really funny Instagram video I saw where it was like my ancestors criticizing my current way of life. And it's like, wow, it must be terrible to be so fat and comfortable in the winter. Right? And it's like, it's just a different time period
Yeah.
where we're not in that world anymore, but we unconsciously tap into that channel, that pattern. And as a mindset coach, I love that you said convincing. It's impossible to convince someone. All we can do is influence.
Mhm.
Now, unfortunately, when you're little, you get influenced by whatever's around you. And that's why, like, when I work, unfortunately, with people who have mental and emotional abuse backgrounds, um, they'll share these really tragic stories about the domestic violence that they were exposed to or the rape that happened to them when they were young.
Mhm.
And that becomes the channel that they're tuned into with the way they see themselves. And it becomes really difficult for them to live a happy, successful life. Even when they, quote, reach their goals, they feel like something's wrong with them. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. And so my story about tapping into this channel of influence that my ancestors had, I watched my parents, I watched my grandparents live, and then trying to live my life and becoming very successful, like we say, shedding skin, starting my first brick and mortar business at 22, having a team of 5 trainers at the age of 22, going back to massage school and finishing that, and then studying with Tony Robbins therapist at 24, studying neurofunctional immune. I mean, I have a osteopath, functional medicine, chiropractor doctor that I'm going to be developing a neuroimmune module for. It's like all the success, sales and mindset, 60K programs, all of that. 2 beautiful children, lovely wife, being on these incredible vacations that people dream about. My vacation list is immense. I'm so blessed, and I say that because I can't tell you how many vacations I've been on where I meet someone who's in their 60s to 70s, and they tell us that that's the last vacation they have planned in their life, and it's their retirement party. They're on a retirement party. I'm just on another vacation. I don't know if you've ever had that experience before, but
I
it's so humbling. Isn't it humbling
yeah.
to realize how blessed that we are? And despite that, still feeling like something was wrong with me, still feeling like I needed more. And ironically, being a mindset coach and helping people influence, it's like I didn't realize that I was coming from such a perspective of necessary performance that I had picked up from the channel of my ancestors, my dad, my mom, and these kind of things. And so what ended up happening, I'd say there's 2 lows to what happened. Is the first low is that I tried to throw myself through my glass shower door multiple times.
Mm.
Fortunately, it didn't break. And I was having a psychotic break where I was actually hearing voices tell me to do it. And then I channeled the rapture twice, and emergency services had to come, and I spoke to everyone's sin in the room
Mm.
and the forgiveness that they needed. And then I passed out after the first time, and the second time I tried to get taken to a mental hospital. And so, despite having all this success and having all of the mindset and even coaching psychologists, I've coached and worked with psychologists, um, not really understanding until I was in the psychiatrist's office and I was being medicated how important the pillars of real self care are. And they don't have to do with being a health coach,
Mm.
they have to do with feeling supported. And they have to do with examining your values and renewing your values. They have to do with grounding. They have to do with grieving. And they have to do with growing. That's the 3G model in my book. It's the 3G path. Is most of us aren't grounded and we rarely have a conversation like you and me. The reason this is so rich to me is you're a health coach, you're someone who cares about the work, you're someone who cares about me. I get to share that with you. That's grounding, it's self-care, it's beautiful.
Oh,
And
thank you.
then I talk about my pain, like having EMS come, trying to throw myself through a glass window, and now I'm grieving that that experience happened to me. And then I'm looking in this conversation, which is really beautiful. It's like, what did I learn? We talk about what we learned from our pain and the values. Like my friend I've talked about, Melissa, who passed away, and your sister. And what did we both establish as values? That people fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
Fall through the cracks, don't they? And there's so many invisible things that providers won't be able to bring to people, not because they're bad people, but because the system isn't set up for everyone. And so when people come to us, we give them the benefit of the doubt, we give them the chance. And we're a little more hungry to go learn and suspend disbelief that we could learn something to help someone like our sister, to help someone like a Melissa. And that
Mm.
becomes a value that we metabolize.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been learning, in the last month is how to metabolize my pain to renew my values. And so I appreciate you asking about that.
No, it's powerful stuff, and I think I remember when you first shared that experience with me from like again, you're one of my heroes. I always tell you that all the time. Like again, you said you had all these wonderful experiences. You said you got everything on paper is awesome, right? It's like I always say that sometimes when I hear that and I reflect back on myself, so sometimes we're better coaches than players, right? So was it? I'm gonna throw some words. I just want to see.
Yeah, yeah.
I want like it's good to hear, and I'm happy that you're sharing with the audience. But it's scary because, like, again, you have everything. You do at least from the outside looking in. Like, is there elements of guilt of your success? Like, do you like ponder that? Was it stuff like you said that you you didn't have the community of folks who could support you, and or could it was it a part of it like you just had no outlet to share like some of these things? Because like when I know and the way that you express yourself, you've always been someone who's very in tune with your shortcomings, and then you go and work on it. So it's like when I hear the story, I'm scared from, you know,
Yeah.
you know, because like you know, like I one day what, cause a buddy of mine had that same kind of situation, and he just basically he was more on I guess a suicidal
Mm.
mm, spectrum.
Less schizophrenic, hearing voices, seeing things that didn't exist, more suicidal. Is what I'm
Suicide,
hearing.
and he was just
Yeah.
like
Okay.
he just said he snapped, and I was like,
Mm.
"Dude, what do you mean you just snapped? Were you
Yeah.
drunk? Like what happened? Like did you?"
Yeah. The brain got overloaded and couldn't handle. That's called a mental breakdown. So I didn't know this. There's a difference between a mental breakdown and a psychotic breakdown.
Okay,
A mental breakdown is where you just can't handle the shit anymore. You're just like, it's like when your kid pushes you to the last straw and you go from being the guy who is educated in positive discipline to the guy who just starts yelling and throws a tantrum, even though you're the adult, right? You throw a tantrum
yeah,
like a 2-year-old. That's like a mental breakdown. That's when you're like, I can't deal with it anymore. So you turn to anger or you turn to sadness. And sadness usually becomes suicide, and anger becomes hurting others. That kind of makes sense, right? So at
yeah,
first, like in domestic violence situations, someone with a lot of pain, this is a friend of mine we were talking about yesterday, it's really helped me to understand the pillars of grounding because before that I didn't really ask people these kind of questions, but he is in the military, physical therapist, and was so angry at his wife that it got to a point where she called his commanding officer and said, I'm going to file a domestic violence claim, which is a big deal in the military because once you're violent, they can't let you hold weapons. That
right.
makes sense. They're liable. So they take that really seriously. And this guy's a great friend of mine. He was actually my first trainer that ever worked for me. Beautiful man. And he had so much trauma from his Korean and Italian upbringing, and he didn't realize he was carrying that over into his family on a daily basis. And so he ended up in therapy, mandatory therapy and anger management class for 2.5 years to metabolize his pain. And he thought he was doing great. He always said everything's great. He's on paper, he was doing great. He was getting more education. He was getting his bachelor's degree. His family was doing well. He was taking care of his son all the time who had special needs. But
Right.
inside, he was not doing well. And when you have a mental break, it's when you just can't handle it anymore and your emotions pour out. When you have a psychotic break, it's when you actually break down so badly that it's not you can't handle the emotions, it's that you actually start seeing and hearing things that aren't there and you treat them like they're real.
Mm.
And that's the level of break that I had. And kind of the difference between the two is when you have a psychotic break, you have to get medicated for it. So, like, I'm on certain medications. When you have a mental break, sometimes you get medicated for ADHD, ADD, maybe anxiety, but they don't give you antipsychosis meds.
Mm.
I'm on antipsychosis meds, and what those do is they reduce the amount of dopamine. So when you do a yoga class, when you meditate, you do these spiritual practices, they
Yeah.
raise your dopamine.
Hmm.
I did so many spiritual practices to deal with my stress that I exercised, which raised dopamine, and then I meditated and did spiritual practices to raise dopamine. And I had so much dopamine, I became psychotic.
Wow.
Okay. And then now most people may never get there. So if you're like in a yoga instructor, man, you're like, what the heck? It's like I've never heard that before. My teachers had never seen that before either. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that make us different genetically and biologically, right? And so my cousin at the age of 10 was speaking to spirits, seeing spirits, and they were actually holding and touching him. And it was painful for him. And he's been medically disabled his whole life as a result of that. Okay. So everyone's got a different connection to spirit, just and to the other realms. You ever hear about astral plane? You've
Sure.
got
Yeah.
a different connection to astral plane, right? Some people are going to do nothing and get there. I can't tell you how many of my clients that were really ill would just see spirits walking through their houses and have to tell them to go away. I mean, I've got so many clients like that. Like, we call it alter abled is the term my psychiatrist uses. So I'm an ultra abled human being. I have certain tap ins to the astral plane that other people don't. And so that tapping can be so strong that you need antipsychosis medications, like my cousin has been on since he's been young. And so you have to reduce the amount of chemistry and DMT that allows you to activate that because you can't tell the difference between this realm that you live in and the other ones. And if you're like that, that's called a psychotic break. And that, not to diminish a mental break, um, after I had my psychotic break, then I had a mental break. So when you have a psychotic break, you get both. It's a two for one. It's like a Costco special. You get the hot dog with the soda. You don't have to pay extra for it.
Get the Happy Meal. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. You get the man. I saw Burger King's doing 3.99 for a Happy Meal for kids. I couldn't believe it because my wife said McDonald's was twice the price. I was like, yeah, the psychotic break is like the Burger King Happy Meal. For
Oh.
only 3.99, you get the psychosis and the mental break. Because what happens once you break that badly is you can't distinguish reality from what's coming in through the astral plane. And then what occurs is that your brain is so permeable that when you try to ground back to reality, you don't have the tolerance for all the little stuff again. You
Mm.
know? And so it's like your friend who just couldn't deal with whatever and became suicidal. Like I was angry when I couldn't handle it. I would resort to anger rather than sadness. Now, unfortunately, we did a genetic test and the medication I was taking, it turns out it was dosing me at twice what I should have been dosed at. And so I ended up metabolizing twice the amount of medication, antipsychosis medication, that I should have been. Would have been lovely if they did the genetic test first, but I think from an insurance standpoint, they can't order one until after. So it turns out I was on like 20 milligrams when I should have been on 10.
Okay.
And so that gave me extreme depression, extreme depression, almost suicidal thoughts like if I could feel again, it would be worth shoving my hand through a piece of glass
Mm.
because the numbness and the sunken place of that, not the same sunken place as hypnosis. I've done a lot of hypnosis and you get into this sleep of the nervous system that's different. When you're on medication, you actually become disconnected from yourself. Like your brain knows that something is wrong. Okay.
Mm.
And then you crave the sensation of anything again. That's why people tend to cut themselves because
Wow.
the neurological system is actually saying we're so dysregulated that we need to feel something, and that's why they'll have all those scars. It doesn't mean they're trying to kill themselves at that point. Just like during my experience, like I really felt like I needed to be taken to a mental hospital to protect everyone. So I told them, I laid on the floor and was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go get the knives." And they were just like, "No, you're not. You're not even moving." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna get it. You better go hide them."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "All right, well, I'm clearly dangerous. You need to call emergency services and get me taken away." So it's like it's not like Isaac's or whoever is not there anymore. It's that the thoughts are operating differently, right? And
Yeah.
that's an important thing to understand with people. And it's given me such an appreciation for like my friend who I said had to go to therapy for 2.5 years because of potential domestic violence, or like your friend who became suicidal, because I didn't know that psychosocial support was as important. And I would say that's the primary thing, if we were going to say, there's a tap on the shoulder, Isaac, and what were the early signs I got? One, there's more of my career that I should have let go of earlier. So as a business owner of a gym, as a consultant for multiple businesses, as a sales coach, as a emotional health coach, as a healer, I held all of that in my container. And I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And that's a lot to hold. And so even though I was successful and I was making money and I was doing a good job when I showed up, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. The thing I wanted to do 100% is to speak and to do workshops where I can help people make transformation happen super fast. Rather than taking that same weekend and being like, let's spread this out over a year, and all the stuff in your life is going to show up over that year. So you'll actually, over a year, get about 2 weeks worth of outcome. And I didn't realize I wanted that to be faster for people until after I had the break and I thought about returning back to work. I went, do I want to get on calls with people every week and encourage them to make this progress through a slow period? Or would I rather do that really quickly? I feel like I've talked forever. So,
Oh no, you see, I'm all into this. I wanna bring out something because we've had that discussion about that type of model, which I think again, another show we can dive into it because I think that's the the way to go. I don't think a lot of, and I think people are recognizing it. That's why they say course sales are down. All these kinds of things are looking towards like retreats and things that really are intensive that guarantee results. But but here's something that I don't know if you've thought about this. Have you ever heard of the term vicarious trauma?
Hmm. Interesting term. No, tell me and all the listeners about it.
So check this out. So in my job, I
Mm,
do a lot of teaching as far as health and wellness too. Like they've given me an opportunity to shine in that respect too. So that's why I always am grateful for my current career, right? But vicarious trauma and working in the courts is basically when you're taking on traumatic experiences from people who you're dealing with on a regular basis. So in the courts, you have people who are constantly seeing, say, sexual abuse, maybe domestic violence, gang-related incidents, and the way the courts are basically operating in a criminal track, you get to see the same criminal. Hear the story,
mm,
story, story, story. And when you're in a profession that's trying to help people, which I'm definitely in, health coaches are in, and you're hearing this material constantly, you vicariously take on some of that. And by doing that, I'm not a, I've kind of familiarized yourself with this this term that I guess it's more like maybe in the public sector.
mm.
How much of that might have been affected you? How much of those
Huge, huge. And and if I had psychosocial support to help me process that, or a psychiatrist who really helped me understand how important it is to talk through it. I did really well for a while working with a coach for about half a decade. My
Mhm.
sales and mindset coach that I really love, Chris. And he reached out to me the other day and we had a great talk. Um, but it was about really metabolizing all my stressors that I was picking up, as you call it, vicarious trauma. And that worked super well for me. I think where it hit a wall for me in the story that I have is that I wanted to make that $750,000 a year instead of $500,000 a year again. But I didn't want to do what I had done last time to get it.
Mhm.
But I didn't know how to let go of where I was to go forward. And I think that the only way I could get there was to have for me, everyone's different, psychotic breakdown where I actually had to let go of my current business
Yeah,
in
yeah.
order to say, I need time to heal, write this book, do this speaking, and do the thing that I had actually wanted to do that I wasn't allowing myself space to. And if I had approached it from, oh, Isaac, you want to make at least $500,000 being a speaker. So that's the expectation when you start, Isaac, is that you have to make 500,000. I never start the speaking
Mhm.
because it's so daunting. And I think health coaches, if you're listening to this, it's the same thing. It's like, well, I would love to have, a $10,000 client. Well, okay, cool. What are people paying you right now? $100 an hour. So the gap between $100 an hour and 10,000 seems so big that they never get there. But why couldn't they start at 2,000? Why couldn't they start at 4,000? Why couldn't they start at 5,000 for a year? I remember I talked to one coach and he went from corporate. He was making like 300,000 a year. First year of coaching, he made like $6,000. Second year, he made $60,000. Okay, he did it for 6 years. Now he's at like a million a year. Okay,
Mhm.
and I asked him like, how did you stay in a game for 6 years when you made less than you knew you had made? Very interesting. And he actually coached the mayor of cities, like pretty big coach around infrastructure and everything. And he said, "Well, I just knew I was a slow burn."
Mhm.
He's like, "I would never fast at anything. So if I looked at my first year of returns at 6,000, I would have quit. If I looked at my second, I would have quit. I knew I needed a runway to take off. I knew I needed to speed up, and then I needed to lift off. And the thing that I didn't learn is how to do that for myself. So the only way I think my spirit could really give it to me was to burn everything down and said, you have no choice but to run away now. And you could go back to it, but I'll just make it so unhappy and so obvious for you that if you go back to that way of being, you'll have a psychotic break again. So I'll give you the best gift I can give you, which is I'll teach you in the way that you learn."
Mhm. But that comes down to what we kind of mentioned last time. It's like a majority of us, that's the way we learn. It's
Yeah. It's the thing that gathers the most attention, isn't it?
Yeah.
and that the pain creates the highest, loudest signal. And that's, at the beginning of my book in the prologue, which mine's a prologue that I'm like, don't skip the prologue because nothing makes sense if you don't understand that I'm about to end my own world, because the beginning of the book doesn't go there. It's saying, well, my hope is that the signal that you get doesn't have to be as loud as my signal. My
Right.
hope is that you don't lose, $250,000, and my hope is that you don't end up throwing cake through your house and reliving the rapture to your mom and your dad and all your loved ones. And EMS services doesn't have to come out twice, and you don't try to throw yourself through your glass shower twice. My hope is that the signal is a lot softer and gentler for you,
Yeah.
and you'll ultimately learn with the signal that you need to hear. You'll tune into the channel that you can hold the container for. But my hope is that you don't have to. And um and a lot of that can be prevented through understanding your values, understanding what you want, and understanding psychosocial mental health, understanding meaningful activities, and
Yeah.
moving beyond kind of the stigma of health, which is, oh, if you eat better and you exercise. I'll tell you, like, I exercise and I eat immaculately. Oh, if you do some meditation and journaling. I'll tell you, I was journaling every single night,
Right.
and I had bad insomnia from October to February. In fact, I've only had 5 nights now where I've slept past 1 a.m.
Mm.
as of October to now. And so I would do what I, as a health coach, would tell someone else to do if I woke up at 1 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. Journal, meditate, do your yoga practice.
Mhm.
I did that for months. And so I did all the typical things in health. I ate really well. I didn't over caffeinate myself if I was tired. I took lots of supplements if I needed them. And what I didn't realize is that no sleep makes the mind super permeable.
Mm.
And that was like a great lesson for me. There's three things that I really undervalued that my psychiatrist, Dr. Greg, helped me see. Sleep is a necessity. There's no way around it. If you're not getting sleep, then you medicate for the sleep. And I was like, well, no, medicating for sleep sounds like a terrible idea. Actually, when I was in the spiritual realm, they told me that, like, medicine is a great thing, right? Sometimes you're just going to need the medicine. Like, the judgment that natural things are somehow going to replace medicine is not a thing. I don't know why I thought it. It wasn't my thought, because in my head I've always been like, oh, you should do your best to get off medications and you should try not to take them. And
Mhm.
actually, Spirit was like, no, if you have diabetes and you can't uptake the insulin, you better take
You
some
better
insulin.
get this. Right.
You
Right.
know, if you're not going to create enough hormone to level yourself, then you should take a little. But it's, what Spirit wasn't telling us was the dosage. It was telling us the importance of leveling yourself, taking care of yourself, the
Mm.
importance of self care. This is way before I was that crazy psychotic, by the way. I had the hard thing about talking to spirits is all sounds like a good idea. You get lots of really good information. And it told me this anyway. So if you can't sleep, you got to do what it takes to sleep, because people don't understand how poorly the brain functions when it doesn't sleep. And that's really a lot of times when people have psychotic breaks, it's from not sleeping. And if
Mhm.
you don't have psychosocial support, this is something I was talking to you about and kind of why I wanted to reconnect with you on the podcast, is like, one, I love being a psychosocial support system for you as a man and another healer. Two, I just would love more psychosocial support for healers in general, because I feel like if I had had that, the story could have gone differently for me. And that's not people getting together and talking about their business, by the way. I'm part of tons of masterminds. You and I both know, like, we're part of some dad groups where you
Yeah.
just talk about the stress of being a dad. That's a really important psychosocial support group. I feel like healers need their own version of that. People that are taking on vicarious trauma, as you say, by by working with people that have health challenges. That's super important. Just like watching your friend die from not being healthy enough, that's something that is vicarious trauma that gets transferred. And then finally, having meaningful activities, like everyone just sitting around and sketching a picture of their kid or their dog or something. And it's funny how when we open ourselves up to enjoying meaningful activities that have nothing to do with work. I mean, me being a workaholic, I really didn't have that many. So that's why now every day, almost every day on my Facebook, you'll see I do a sketch. And the reason I do the sketch is because no one's going to pay me for those sketches, that's for sure. But it's meaningful to me to put pen to paper and create something not work related. And that's been really fun for me. Or there was like an X-Men bag that I really liked, but I don't need any more bags. And so I drew the bag instead. I drew the bag on top of a man's shoulder as he set off down the path to go create all his dreams. And then it just said Charles Xavier School for the Gifted, established 1960 something. And
Mm.
so my desire became a piece of art that was very meaningful for me without having to be something work related. And then getting to share that with people and kind of talk about it, things like that. So those things are just really present for me right now as I go through this. And I'm sure as I go through my recovery, more things are quite present.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that you kind of gave me the segue to actually ask you because this is a happy ending. I know, no question about it. Like, you did mention, you're on the medication now. You're not going to be on the medication forever. We've always also had this conversation that we're um re repurposing ourselves, right? So at the end of the day, um you going through that experience is going to help other people go and make that prevent that experience. Talk about that a little bit and like what's your next steps because again I think that was my main thing. I was so nervous to say, but Isaac, are you gonna be okay? Like, are you gonna like,
Uh,
are you gonna be on medication for
the recovery looks like, yeah. So it really depends on sleep schedule because if you're someone who creates a ton of dopamine, you just get excited all the time. Like in the middle of the night, I get excited about a thought, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what. Like the other day, I built an AI thing that does all my periodization for me at like 3 a.m. Right. So double-edged sword being my wife calls it autism. It's like you're not autistic, but you got some autisms. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we did a neurodivergent parenting class, and the teacher's like, "Wow, Isaac, you probably undiagnosed. You definitely have some tendencies." And our son had a lot of them. So she was like, "Who else is like that in the family?" And my wife just keeps going,
Mhm.
pointing to the husband, right? And we
Mhm.
joked about this earlier today because she's just like, "You have some tisms." I think when you have chemistry that's different, and Spirit told me neurodivergent people they just channel and they just get more things. It's just they hate that term. Um, is what Spirit told me. It's like we build people differently. Kind of obvious.
Mhm.
Maybe some people are meant to sleep through the whole night because if you look at medieval times, people didn't sleep through the whole night. Like the person who baked the bread had to wake up at like 2 a.m. and start the bread process. You
Mhm.
didn't have like bread leaveners and all those machines and stuff. So also people that had to do night watches to make sure you didn't get invaded, all those things. Those people actually adapted genetically to these sleep schedules in the middle of the night. They would be
Mhm.
fine. There's actually a lot of documentation that some of these people were so effective at working, they'd wake up in the middle of the night, they would do their work, then they'd sleep during the day a little bit, and then they'd finish their work. Like they just had so much efficiency that they
Mhm.
didn't need to be sleeping the whole time. I consider myself kind of in that class of person because I've never really slept through the night that long, that well. And I generally just don't need it unless I go through something more expanded. So, in terms of medication load, my psychiatrist doesn't think I'll be on it for very long. He just wants to make sure that I get enough that I catch up on the sleep. And I probably won't be on antipsychotic medications. Actually, at least the ones that I'm aware of that I'm taking, they just reduce dopamine. So it's kind of like you don't want to be drinking a bunch of caffeine and doing a lot of charged up activities if you're trying to take something that limits the charge,
Yeah. No,
right? And yeah, it's just kind of obvious if you think about it. So like I didn't drink caffeine for a very long time while I was taking it. And now that I'm sleeping better, I actually found the caffeine helps me sleep better because it tires me out better. So I'm less likely to get up. Um, and then the recovery is really about metabolizing the values. It's like, okay, once you have your grounding activities, you've got your social dynamics, you're going on walks with your friends, you're doing sketches, doing all these things. Now you get to grieve. You get to grieve your life and all the things that you pulled away, whether it's vicarious trauma or it's direct trauma. And then you get to renew your values, and then you get to go live those values. And then ideally, the way you live your value role feeds right back into your grounding.
Mhm.
And if it does that, then you have value role function.
Mhm.
If your value role, what you're doing, doesn't regenerate you, then you have value role dysfunction. And that's a recipe for having a psychotic break or a mental break.
Mhm.
And so my challenge here in being a health coach and being a consultant and doing all these things is I was holding all of that without having metabolization of my grief and then understanding what value roles I really wanted to keep in that would recharge the base of the pyramid to keep the grounding active.
Right, right,
So
right.
as a result, as I lost more sleep thinking about my business than I gained, if that makes sense. I spent my meaningful activities on work rather than meaningful activities on things that really filled me with joy, like true joy. And sometimes those things don't, like guitar is one of them. I was playing Bob Dylan these times I were changing on the guitar the other day.
Mm.
And it's like, no one's going to pay me to play that on the guitar. And I sure wouldn't post it on Facebook, but man, did I enjoy playing it, if that
Right.
makes sense. Did I enjoy learning it? And so those are meaningful activities. Boxing, like I was boxing, and I'm never going to get in the ring and try to knock someone out, but I just love the athleticism and the bounce that comes with being able to move your body and the technique that comes with being a really good boxer. And so these meaningful activities are really important, but not just the activity, the social part of it too. So
Yeah.
like weightlifting in the past was something that always was a meaningful activity to me. And as I got older and had my kids, I stopped lifting with other people and it became a solo activity that just checked the boxes for fitness. If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
even something as simple like I just came from an Orange Theory fitness class that I did with my wife. Now, I used to make fun of Orange Theory Fitness all the time because it's not like the best program. I mean, we did like dead bugs and was it dead bugs and bicycle sit up presses. And what was the third exercise was pullovers. Like that's the circuit. You know, it's nothing groundbreaking or impressive. But doing it with my wife and not being responsible for the container was more helpful for me than walking into my gym and being responsible for the entire program, the facility, and all my trainers and clients that want to have a conversation with me. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And so
absolutely.
that was absent for me.
Huh. Well, you know what? The good thing is that, you're on the mend and you're not letting this situation go to go to waste, right? At the end of the day, um, you're gonna become a better Isaac. We're all benefiting from the share of that story. There's no question about it, because I think a lot of us have gone through something. We obviously haven't had all of us had the break, but I think the way that you told the story, we start to recognize little things about ourselves that we may or may not be doing, right? And that's just one of the things that, just hearing what you're saying, it definitely resonates with me. So I'm sure that many health coaches are going to get the same value for that. And as always, I mean, I felt like we just started this conversation and we've been rocking. It's an hour.
Has it? Wow. Fantastic.
It doesn't stop. I mean, every time we jump on these calls, I mean, it's just like an hour goes in like a second. And usually, like I always tell with every episode, the half hour is the sweet spot. And it's all good. I don't think anybody's gonna be turning this one off. So half hour is gonna go very easily. So but yeah, like I think maybe just to wrap, I'd like to share, just some of our intentions together. Like I know what I listened to an episode, and this may be going back 2.5 years, and we've always had this promise of like being a little bit more consistent with these kinds of episodes and just this collaboration. And like I said, I know a lot of people get a lot of joy out of it. This year we're gonna stay with this, right? We have a lot of things like the big hype, and if we didn't reveal it subtly enough, you're gonna be a part of my book, and I think what an idea would be is to basically speak on your chapter, and I think everyone's chapter. So I think what I intend to do is kind of just reach out to all the folks who are in the book and sit down and have a actual show around these chapters that get people on the way to $1 million. So I think that's. I think we probably have 12 or 13 folks in the book already.
Or even what do you even think about a you could record it and make it a podcast episode, but I'd love a Facebook Live where people can ask their questions. Your audience could ask the questions. That
Yeah.
way if they read the book, they're able to say, well, this is where I'm at, what would you do in my situation or
Oh,
something.
I love those. Those now, and I'm glad you brought that up because those are so hot right now
Yeah.
that, like, what do they call that? Like, I forgot. Someone called.
Q&As? Like a
Yeah,
Q&A? Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
they're like live Q&As where it's just like, you just that's the content. I think I always thought that was like a really interesting way of just creating content because the questions are so genuine and they're usually at such a level. And it's funny. I was just talking to someone about this morning. I think it was oh God, I'm looking at his face. Peterson. What's his first name? Famous dude.
Jordan?
Yeah,
Jordan Peterson? Okay.
you listen to Jordan Peterson and he's so out there. So,
Uh,
it's like he's talking at this level. And I remember him saying that his most, I guess, and it might have been many years ago, but he used to like actually speaking. He said his most enjoyable was when he was starting out, right? Where the conversation you were talking to such a broader group. Like now, where he's talking, only like five people understand what that he's talking about at this point. So his community is kind of diminished. And I feel sometimes when you're talking to uh, other experts in the field, like we forget the basic questions, and it's like it's so refreshing when someone asks like that 0 to 1 question, and you're like, "Oh man,
like, what am I supposed to do on a sales call? You're like, oh, uh, what a
I-"
general question. This person has not done many sales calls. Oh,
right?"
I
And then
guess
you
I'm just
gotta
gonna give them the whole thing. Yeah.
right, and you gotta rethink because you haven't done it in that perspective for 10 years.
How do I get a sales call?
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. So yeah, I love those kinds of conversations and like the Q&A stuff. Yeah, I'm down to do all of that stuff. I think it'd be really cool, especially if we can get a little panel together. Like
Yeah.
we have our core folks that we interact with a lot, and even if we just have those 4 or 5 people to just like, ask me anything you want about a podcast, ask anything about sales,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how many of those things open up and how helpful it would be for people. So I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah, it'll be podcast sales, networking, and shamanism.
Okay. Don't sprinkle a channeling, maybe. We gotta see
Yeah, sprinkle a channel. Yeah. That, tell people it's better to stay in this plane because you live in this plane. That's the lesson there.
yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot to talk about that, especially that was an interesting perspective that you gave it.
Yeah, your new dishwasher only comes in this plane, by the way.
Let's hope.
The whirlpool's only in this plane. It's not in the astral plane. You can fly around, become as powerful as you want. You still won't find the whirlpool
You're right.
dishwasher in that plane.
Amen. Well, Isaac, again, as always, thanks for coming on the show. You're fantastic. I'm excited to have more of these conversations, in 2026. So really looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it. You're the fire horse. You gotta charge it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me, Omar.
You know it. Take care. Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.